Well, 90 years after he commenced his career, Al Phillis is still highly regarded, fondly remembered, and certainly very much respected. An outstanding career from a boy from Enfield here in Sydney to become one of the legends of harness racing. I caught up with one of his sons, Colin, at Club Menangle tonight for the running of the Al Phillis Free for All to reflect on his dad's career. Well, Colin, great to catch up with you on this night that we remember the great Al Phillis. The family must be very proud that the fact that, as I mentioned in the introduction, 90 years on, and we still respect and fondly remember his performances.
Oh, it's terrific, absolutely, yep.
His first drive as a 16-year-old, Don's Duke, greeted the judge at a track down in Wollongong, of all places, back in 1934.
Yes, that's right, and he drove the horse to the track as well and drove it home after, yeah.
I've heard so many wonderful stories about back in those days where they caught trains or, as you said, took the horse to the track by road.
Yep, that's exactly right, and there was another old track there at Mittagong, actually, yeah.
Harold Park commenced in October the 1st, 1949. Your father had an immediate success, so much so that during the 50s and 60s they dubbed him Mr. Trotting.
Yes, exactly right. He was a dairyman at heart, and still was to the day he died, or cattle dealer, I should say. But yes, he started, as I said, from Don's Duke, Royal Saxon, Kitty's Pride, Derby Pearl, all them were the ones he kicked him off, yeah.
And he bought Don's Duke for £8.
Yes, I suppose that's a fortune now, isn't it? Yes. No, yeah, he was a lovely, I never seen him, of course, but I know I've seen pictures and Dad talked about him. He was a lovely, wasn't a big horse, he was just a nice horse, yeah, pony.
As you mentioned, your father commenced his working career on a dairy farm and cattle also. The fact that when Harold Park came into vogue and more racing started to kick off, he decided to turn his hand full-time to harness racing.
Yes, he did, but he always had a sideline was his Delton cattle. He sold them at Camden Sale Yard. He used to drive them before when they were young from downtown where the Homebush to Camden, yeah.
During that period of harness racing, the 50s and 60s, always remembered as the golden period of harness racing at Harold Park, many a legend was born out of that particular period.
Many a legend and many a gentleman as well, and they were all horsemen, yeah. Just weren't drivers, they were horsemen, yeah.
Did your father ever speak of the opponents he came up against that he considered to be the toughest?
Jimmy Caffin comes to mind to start with. Yeah, I had a respect for Perce Hall, Merv Adams, Archie Egan, which got killed on this track. Yes, he was had a respect for everyone in the game, yeah.
6 times he topped the premiership as a trainer, 4 times as a driver, and as we mentioned, during that period where there was just so many famous trainers and drivers who then became legends like your dad, pretty fair achievement.
It was, yeah. As I just stated before, there were through that period, the trainer, he drove his horses, and they were all horsemen, and you know, you didn't get many catch drives like they do today to win, because the trainers were top horsemen, as I said, Perce Hall, Merv Adams, Jimmy Caffin, the lot. You can go through Vicky Frost later on, yeah, and Tony Turnbull, of course, he was a legend, yeah.
We mentioned a couple of horses that your dad had, and in particular, when you talk to the late great Billy Whittaker, one of the most famous harness racing journalists, and Billy Ellis of today from the Daily Telegraph, Harry Pearce from the Daily Mirror, when you speak to them, Sibelia, they always spoke of Sibelia in the highest department as far as their favourite horses.
Yes, she was. She was a lovely filly, mare. Dad had a lot of time for her. He put a lot of time in her. When he first got her, she was a problem child, wouldn't go around the turns properly, and finally got her going around, and she even won a race at Gosford, you know, which was a tiny little track. But no, she was absolutely a star, yeah.
Another horse you had a great deal of success with, 37 wins, Tarcoola.
Tarcoola, yes, New Zealand mare. Brought her over, and he was getting her ready for the Derby. She was in the paddock and jumped over a trough and cracked the bone in her back leg. So that put her out to later on, but you always had to watch her, because if you turned your back on it, she'd have hold you and shake the hell out of you. But she was a beautiful mare, yeah.
And later on, he also enjoyed a lot of success, very productive association with John Craig.
John Craig, he bred him in New Zealand. He brought him across and he sold him, I think it was Bob and Jack's first horse. He won the New South Wales, South Australian and Victorian Derby. He won the Menangle Park Cup off a back mark, the only 3-year-old that's ever done it, yeah.
You mentioned your dad being an all-round horseman, and that came to fruition when he formed a very good association with trotters.
Yes, yep, that's my alley. I love trotters. Yeah, right from old horse called Admiral Arian, which comes from Queensland, Shelgrid, Not Quite, which won the first New South Wales Trotters Cup, which is up here I donated it to the museum. A lot of Ansie's Cove, you could go on, yeah.
Your father retired back to the dairy farm, let's say, but he just couldn't settle down. He just kept making a couple of little comebacks.
Yeah, he come back with Sid McLean, Melbourne and that. He just, once it's in your blood, you can't get it out, yeah. So he went back dealing horses and dealing cattle, but always had the edge to come back. I give him a couple of drives on a horse called High Efficiency and Daring Sally, and he won with both of them, yeah.
What do you think was the most important lesson you learned from your dad that helped your career?
Patience, and to sit in the cart and hold your hands. If you see pictures, he's always down there, and not get your horse excited, trying to balance them so they don't pull. With him, I think I can only recall one horse that pulled for him. It was magic in his hands, and that's what he passed on to me, yeah.
Colin, when you got such a famous father, a very successful father, who then, as we now know, became a legend of harness racing, no doubt you and your brother were always going to follow in his footsteps?
Yeah, well, mainly me. The brother, he wasn't as keen. He was for a while with Dad and everything, but no, he more went out and doing other things, fruit shops and things like that in Queensland. I've been with him all my life, yeah.
And what was the most successful part of your career?
Probably Bindaboo Major won the first New South Wales trotter to ever go to Victoria and win the Australasian Trotters Championship. And High Efficiency, there was a fair few, but old Bindaboo Major is a favourite for me forever, yeah.
And your brother Barry, as you mentioned, wasn't as involved, but certainly knew his way around a racetrack. He drove his fair share of winners.
Oh yes, yeah, he won the Tom Austin Cup and everything like that. Yeah. No, he drove. As I said, he didn't have the edge that he wanted to fire on with them that much, Yeah, preferred to drive a taxi.
Well, Colin, it's great to see you here on a night where we honour the famous, legendary Al Phillis. And it's great to see that we continue to remember all these greats, because without those greats of the past, we don't have a future.
You're dead set right. You never said a truer word. Yeah. I'm in Victoria now. I'm president of the Maryborough Trotting Club. I breed a couple and train a couple and that, but I'll never get out of it. Yeah.
Good to catch up with you, Colin.
Okay. Thank you very much.